In conversation with Terry Lister. Terry Lister is a traveler and a writer. Prior to that, he was a partner in Deloitte accounting firm, a minister in the government of Bermuda, and a realtor. Retired at 60 and has been a solo traveler for the past 10 years and now has been to 108 countries, including 28 in Africa. Since retiring, when he's not traveling, Lister spends time with his family, relaxes with a good book, or sits down to watch his favorite cricket and football teams. And on today's episode of Photo Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy and excitement to have on the show today Terry Lister and Cindy Breck for hosting me in the conversation. Welcome on the show, Terry.
Thank you, Peter. How are you today?
I'm doing very fine.
Good, good. Nice to
It's
be
nice to
here.
meet, it's nice to meet you too, Terry.
Yes, Carol. Nice to see you today.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Quite exciting. We are here again after our first trial. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. So, Terry, first of all, I want to say that it's so great to have you back on P English Literature. I haven't read all of your books. And I would like us to start today's conversation with Let's Go to Gabon, Cameroon, and Namibia, which I think one of them is a neighboring country to Nigeria. That's Cameroon. I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to
Yes.
visit these three countries and eventually write a travelogue about it?
Well, Peter, as you know, I'd been working my way down the west coast of Africa and had been to a number of countries. And I was at a point now where I thought, well, I'll push on and maybe go into Central Africa or South Africa. But before doing so, I decided I would go to Gabon and Cameroon. I also was planning to go to Equatorial Guinea. I couldn't get in. They issue very few visas. And so I couldn't get in there. I rearranged my time for each country. And Namibia was the fourth place initially.
Mm,
Now, when I was planning, I intended to go to Namibia for 1 week, but
wow.
I found so many interesting things there that I turned it into two. And then I found that wasn't enough. I turned it into three. And then stealing time away from the other countries, I spent a whole month in Namibia.
So you also have another book that's A New Day Dawn, My Solo Journey into West Africa. For readers who
Yes.
haven't read that yet, and without giving you much information away, could you give us like a little sneak of what they could pick up and some themes related to that?
Well, A New Day Dawn got the title really because I was going to Liberia and Sierra Leone first, and then into Ivory Coast and Ghana. As many people know, countries suffered through terrible civil wars. I'm very impressed with what I saw in Sierra Leone. They seem to be on their feet and they're doing well. However, it's not the same for Liberia. Liberia is now more than 20 years since the Civil War. I mean, it's just awful. And when people are jostling for power and they do these terrible things internally, they don't really think about what it's going to do long term.
It's
Yeah.
scary what it does long term.
Mhm, mhm. Yes. Um, at the same time, I went to Ivory Coast, which has done very well since independence. They had one leader who led for over 30 years, and he was a solid, sound, uh, forward-looking man. They've had little sort of civil disruption.
Mm,
Around 2012, 13, they had some problems, but they worked it out, and it's a whole decade ago. Ghana, on the other hand, has had a very peaceful time in independence. They've moved forward. They've raised their profile by having the year of return in 2019, when they invited Black Americans in particular to come back and to celebrate. And those who came actually were invited to become citizens. Citizenship was made available to them. Quite
wow.
a few have taken it up and have resettled into Ghana and are making a contribution. And so I was there sort of in the time that these things were going on, and I could see how it was going to impact. And it has been positive.
That's very encouraging that it's been positive.
Yes, yes.
Very amazing as well, really. Yeah, it's quite amazing even to travel from this country, from one country to another, from West Africa to East Africa to other parts of Africa. It's a beautiful one. It's a beautiful one. And as someone who has, read quite a good number of your works, I find it to be quite exciting, very amazing too. And Terry, your books have won numerous awards, including the National Indie Excellence Award, Literary Titan
Mhm.
Gold Book Award, International Impact Award 2024, First Quarter Firebird Book Award, Global Book Award, among many others that might take me perhaps a day to mention out in this conversation. Yeah. But I want to ask you, how do these awards make you feel and how have they impacted your writing career? I love your take on that.
Well, to start with, I didn't think, my books would win any awards. That wasn't part of my thinking. But having written the first one, Immersed, I put it into some of these competitions. I was very surprised with what came out.
Yeah.
To date, all four of the books have won more than 10 awards each. So that's quite makes me feel quite happy and quite proud of it. But there are also other things. There's an organization called Book Authority, which, without me knowing, had named Immerse as one of the three best books, travel books written on Senegal. So that was very encouraging because I had nothing to do with it. In fact, I just found it on the net one day, and I was searching on the net and saw that we had been ranked like this. And so that makes you feel that you're making a contribution and what you're
Yeah.
writing is of value.
Most definitely. You mentioned you mentioned the book Immersed in West Africa. Could you tell us a little bit about that trip itself?
Sure. That was my first trip to Africa in this series. I'd been to Africa a few times in previous life, in other jobs and other situations. But here I had been traveling at that point for 3 years in Central America and South America. And I thought it was time to come across the ocean. And having thought about it, I said, well, where will I start? Most people who come to Africa as tourists go into East Africa and into Northern Africa. I would suggest that the top sort of 10 countries in those areas probably get 75% of all the tourists. And so rather than just following and going there and walking in everybody else's footsteps, I thought I'd start in West Africa and share with people what it had to offer. As you know, in Northern Africa, there's the Sahara Desert, which is huge.
Yeah.
In Senegal, we have the African Renaissance Monument, we have Gorée Island, and the list goes on. And so I wanted to go about, see these places, write about them, and present to potential travelers what has exists there and what has to offer. Documents the fact that in my travels, I always travel as a local, as opposed to as a foreigner or as a tourist. And when I say a local, whatever transportation locals use to get from point A to point B, you'll see me sitting in the midst of them. And I want to know what the experience is for a person in the country as opposed to what's the tourist experience, which is very different.
Yeah, I like the fact that you had to say that. I like the fact that you had to, use the means of transportation that the locals use. I mean, this is something that it's quite fun, and I think it's going to be fun, very fun actually as a foreigner. And that reminds me of, and I think you should know in Makona, his visit to Nigeria, and that was his first time visiting Nigeria. I went to pick him up in the airport. He was coming from
Yes.
England, so. I said, Makuna, I would like you to take the public transport. I wanted to see how you would feel, you know, with the reaction.
Yes.
I was like, this is something I would really love you to do. Like, no, 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 I don't want to share space with anybody. I don't want to do. I was like, I would love to see, really. I want to experience, I want to see you sit in the bus. I want to see you, pass through the ruggedness of the city of Lagos, the perhaps
Yes.
craziness nature of the
Yes.
conductors,
Yes.
etc. So, well, it was like, no, I don't want to do that. So we're going in boat and Uber up and down. But when you mentioned that you use local transport, well, that's quite fun, really. That's something quite exciting.
Well,
That.
well, if you really want to know the life of the local person, you have to take it on. You
Where,
can't stand too far away. And so I did my best to experience what the local people would experience wherever I was traveling. And so you can end up being quite oblivious to because as a tourist, you're being shown the best all the time. You're seeing the best tow trucks. Book in the immersed book, I was in vehicles that if we were taking a drive that lasted 10 hours, the car would break down 3 times. So it took 10 hours because it was broken down. And that was just how it worked. And there was no point in saying, well, I don't like this. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to join up with a tour group and go in their nice fancy van. I didn't want to do that.
It's interesting, Terry, that the actual title of your book, Immersed in West Africa,
Mhm.
takes on a
Yes.
whole new meaning when you actually say that you immersed yourself in the travel, the way the people did and everything. So
Mhm.
that definitely takes on a new meaning.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, and you have you can do it to the next place, and you're being shown the best at all times. You don't really appreciate other things. When I started in Senegal, and in Senegal, you will see little boys, 3, 4, 5 years old, just running in the streets. You'll
Mm.
see little girls the same age running. Then you'll see boys 7, 8, 9 controlling a horse with a cart and taking old ladies to the grocery store and picking up their things and that sort of thing in the market. And then the older brothers, the younger brothers will have a donkey. The older brothers will have a cart, and they'll be taking people back and forth. So these boys will be in their teens, and they assume that in a few years later, when they're old enough, they'll be in one of these dreaded taxis, and that's just the
Yeah.
way it goes. And so I was concerned seeing so many children who, in my thought, should be in school. And
Mm.
so I said to the person I was with, listen, why didn't you have free schooling, at least for primary school, so that the children can go to school? And he
Mm.
said, we do. And I was shocked when he said, I said, well, you have free schooling. Yes. Well, why aren't these children in school? He said, because we believe, something I believe, that children should have uniforms. They can be identified. We also require them to have books and ledgers and this sort of thing. And unfortunately, the parents couldn't afford a uniform. They couldn't afford the books. They couldn't afford the book bag. And so a child would be robbed of an education for those reasons. And the
Hmm.
government had already made the step of making it free schooling. So it just shows you the depth of the problem of just not having money, how it impacts a person, a family, and a child's life.
And it's actually shocking that this is not only something that is particular in one country in Africa. It's a general thing, I think. As we are speaking,
Yes.
you're talking about you've never been to Nigeria before, which is something I'm actually looking forward to, because I would really love to hear your take of what you've written about Nigeria. Or you've been to other African countries, and I've someone who have read your books. I can relate with almost everything you're talking about, from the bus
Mhm.
breaking down 3 times while traveling on a 10-hour journey. It's very,
Yes.
it sounds so Nigeria. Yeah. The last time I went to Benin City, the local bus, I was like, oh my goodness, I've got a lot today, really. So, but the children running around the streets, saying one or two things, being the fact that they're not in school, etc., trying to make ends meet. It's something that resonates with even the Nigerian culture and Nigerian society. So I think this is like a general issue and general concern for the African continent. Yeah, yeah, I'm able to relate as an African, so it's quite beautiful. Love your take on that.
Yes, 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 yes. And I couldn't blame the government when you realize the schooling is free. The schooling is free, so you can't blame the government. But my thought, my suggestion has always been that amongst the many NGOs that exist up and down Africa, there should be some that actually take on the issue of
Mm,
ensuring children get uniforms, they get book bags, and they get books. And
yeah.
that will get them into school. And that would be, wonderful. It's a horrible thing for someone to grow up in this day and age not being able to read and write. And on the other hand, if you think about it, it's a different way.
It's very, very different from how we on the West Coast realize things and know things.
The Americans.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. Um, I would like to talk about the Gambia, the Smiling
Yes,
Coast. Um,
yes.
I must say I love the title name because Gambia is referred to as the Smiling Coast of Africa.
Yes.
Could you tell us just a little bit more about that experience, the Gambia?
First of all, the people in the Gambia are very nice. I'll say that right up front. Uh, like Liberia, it's a very poor country. They survive off of the tourism, and when tourism is in, people are running. They've got jobs. They're happy to be working and that sort of thing. When the tourist season ends, people are just stuck, and that's in the what they call the Semiganda area. I said
Okay.
that completely wrong, and the right word won't come to my mind right now. But the rest of the country,
Yeah.
where the tourists don't go, has a really hard way to go. It's very difficult. Um, you can go out into the countryside and see areas where they don't have any power. The power comes when it comes, and when it goes, it goes, and it goes for a long time. So they fight with those sort of issues. Um, so it's a situation where people do leave the countryside to come to the cities looking for jobs, looking for opportunities, which is known all around the world. This happens everywhere, which ultimately leads to crowded cities of unemployed people and farms that can't operate as well as they could because they don't have enough people because the people are going into the cities. That's the real challenge, I think, all around the world. Former farming communities, where they produce all their food years, large portions,
Mhm.
simply because the people have left for what they think is a better opportunity. Mhm.
Yeah, I can relate to, I mean, this is quite beautiful and quite relatable. You mentioned the power issue. We all know that we have power issues too here. And thanks to the
Yes.
solar panel project we had in time past that makes us to come out from that issue with power supply that we have to have a stable one. So it's a very rampant and quite something that is very relatable in different countries in Africa. So I'd also like to ask you, of all your
Yeah.
travels in
Yes.
African countries, what is the thing you loved most about Africa and its people? Also, is there anything you dislike about African countries based on your visit and experiences?
Well, the thing I like most is the spirit. Never say die. I've got to do it. In the West, as you know, there's an undergird. You can get unemployment insurance, you can get this, you can get that, you can get a food stamp, all of that. And there are many people in the West who get these things just because they don't want to work. They don't wish to work. But in countries in Africa and in some in South America, and so you have to get out there. And I've been impressed. T-shirt, selling a pen and a pencil, anything they can sell to make a few dollars for the day. And, in the West, a young man wouldn't go in the market and sell to start with. He'd want a different type of job. But the guys in the countries I've been to who will take whatever's the job, they'll take it and they'll do it to the best of their ability to try and build a future for themselves. And so I really respect that. I have a lot of respect for the people I've seen. On the other hand, Africa has been hoodwinked. Hoodwinked. Africa got independence in the 70s, in the 60s in some of the countries. It's over 50 years, and they're still tied to the colonial master who makes all the money out of the raw materials. You dig something out of the ground, you don't process it, you put it in a boat and you ship it elsewhere where the processing and ultimate sale takes place. These things could be processed right here in Africa. And the money, therefore, would be African money. Um, the worst offenders, as we know, are the French. The former French colonies, all of them suffer badly because their materials are sold to France at ridiculous prices, and France sell them on at the real price. And so the profit on the deal stays in France.
Mm.
It's wrong. And this is because in the desire to be free, you always have to be very careful when you rush into something. In the desire to be free, the French had the countries sign agreements saying forever, if a country has a big project, they put it out to bid locally. Nobody is capable of doing this big job. Before any country in the world can apply to do that job, put their name. You see, this sort of thing it's not good. It's just not good. And so it bothers me when I hear this constant thing about Africa is poor and it's poor because of the leaders and they're thieves and this, that, and the other.
Mm.
That is a contributing factor, but it's a small factor. It's a small factor. And, really it's time for the countries to get their freedom and
Yeah,
provide money and opportunities for their people.
abs-
That's if nothing changes, nothing will improve. It's as simple as that.
Could you tell us, like, doing this travel log, what the publishing process was like for you as your as an author, and are there any challenges you've encountered in the process of writing your book?
Well, years ago, when people were writing, they were forced to agree to have so many copies produced. And many times they would ask for far more than they could sell, and they'd be stuck with all these books and that sort of thing. To
yeah,
me, that's the greatest joy, not having to do that, I work with a good publisher. We get a good product out, and we give it to Amazon. The only place that our books are sold is Amazon. Some people may think that's a bit foolish, but to my surprise, when I started, I found that Amazon sell something like 70% of all the books that are sold in the world. It's
Yeah,
incredible
they
what
do.
Amazon do. So to me, it makes more sense for me to work really hard and really closely with Amazon to make that relationship work rather than putting a lot of energy into spreading it all around. Plus, if your book's any good and you get a little buzz, other people will get it. Because I would go online and find some of the top department stores in the States were selling my book. I had no idea, but the process is a lot easier for a lot of other people, or it's a lot different. It's not easy, it's different. Um, if you go into a chat group for books and authors, one of the constant subjects is how many words a day are you writing? And that's important. Well, for me, that's not part of the game at all. The way I do my work is that I do a lot of research before I leave. I decide where I'm going to go, what I'm going to see. While I'm there during the day, I'll take some little notes, and then in the evening, and people will write in and make comments. I'll answer the questions. I'll sort of digest what they're giving me, and then when the trip is over and time comes, we'll sit down with the posts and build that into a book. We'll do another round of research. So things I researched before I went, I'll research after if I've seen things that are somewhat different. I want to know which is the real deal, and I'll put a lot of time in. I I spend a lot of time talking to people, asking questions. I've had several people who say to me, "You ask a lot of questions," and I'll smile and say, "Yes, I do." But that's how you get an answer.
I
Absolutely.
think questions are so pivotal.
It's good to ask questions. One who asks questions doesn't miss his way. So curiosity is part of life. That's good.
Yes.
And I also like to ask you, Terry, is there anything that you'd love to share with the viewers about your books that we did not mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know? More particularly, anything about Africa that you'd love to share? Even hopefully,
Well,
if you would love to visit
I've
Nigeria in the
shown.
future.
Maybe just trying to sway you.
I think I have to come. I've heard it too often now. I think I have to come.
Right.
But in all seriousness, the diversity of Africa is really the key. It's a huge place. Most people don't realize that Africa is bigger than any of the other continents. Some claim it's bigger than all of them put together. And so you have everything there, from beautiful forests to the largest deserts to canyons.
Mhm.
It's all sorts of things. And if you like nature, you'll love it. You have a bustling city. People in the West, many people still are looking for huts and grass skirts.
Bush,
Now, I haven't seen a grass
monkeys.
skirt. But I haven't seen a grass skirt anywhere. And they sometimes, you'll show people pictures and they'll say, "Where's that?" And they'll say, "Well, that's Abidjan." "Where's that?" "It's in Ivory Coast." And they're seeing this huge, beautiful city, and they can't understand it. There are massive cities in Africa that
Mm.
are attractive cities. They're not slums. They're not full of slums. There are slums everywhere because, as I said earlier, people leave the farms, they come to the city trying to make an opportunity. So that's everywhere in the world. I spent some time in Brazil, and they have areas in Rio where the slums exist, and I wouldn't go anywhere near that. I didn't want to see it. It's too dangerous. I'm not going to take a chance on my life going there. But that happens every day to move ahead and make a new living. So what I see in Africa, to me, is always positive. I'm always looking for the positive. There is need for change. There's need for redistribution of land holdings. You take a country like Namibia. I thoroughly enjoyed Namibia, but 75% of the land is owned by 5% of the people. Imagine 75% of the usable land, because there's a lot of desert there. You can't use that. But of the usable land, 5% of the people own 75% of it. And they don't see anything wrong with that.
Mm.
And the young people are calling for redistribution because it was one of the promises that SWAPO, the government, had in 1963 when they started fighting for independence. Redistribution of land was at the top of their agenda, and it still hasn't happened. So there are important things that have to be done still, and hopefully they can be done in a peaceful way rather than civil wars and that sort of thing. There's still problems in certain countries, as you know, where people have arms. But most countries are sitting around a table talking and trying to work out their differences, their internal differences, so that everybody can benefit as they go forward. And to me, that's a good thing.
Yeah. I
Oh, that's
think
a wealth of
I think Cindy is not interested in visiting Africa already. She looks excited about it.
I didn't get invited though. I mean, Terry got invited. I didn't get invited.
Oh my goodness. I think she's not interested. Getting to the beautiful cities,
No, I'm not
beautiful
talking to you.
mansions.
No, actually, I do like to travel, and that's part of
Oh
my hope
goodness.
here shortly is that when my husband retires, that we will be traveling. I don't know if Africa's on the list. I mean, I've been to other countries and stuff like that, but
Yes.
I just, in America, I haven't even seen all of it. There's
Yes.
so much to the world
Yeah.
that's so
Yes.
beautiful and God created and stuff. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Terry, I'm kind of interested in knowing, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for writers out there who are struggling themselves with getting their book out there on the market?
Well, I had a little fuss going with a guy shortly after this first book had been written because he did a review that just panned the book. He had 4 comments that he attacked us on. And I went back and talked to the guy, and one by one, he agreed with me that he was wrong on all 4 points. So now I'm really excited because I was upset by what he wrote. Now he admits he's wrong. And I said to him, well, listen, what can you do? Can you take it down? Can you change it? And he said, go write another book. And that was his solution. Not that he would do a thing. He wrote what he wanted to write, and he's going to stand by it. It's up to me to write another book. And at the time, I was sort of annoyed, being new to the business, that he would say such a thing. But now I understand exactly what he means. An author doesn't really get his due and his credit unless he's one of these people who just comes out of nowhere like a rocket and goes to the top. But for the rest, you write 4, 5, 6, 7 books, and then somebody stumbles across you and somebody else, and all of a sudden you're a name, and people want to read your book, and they think you've got 1, and then they find that you got 7. So they love the first one, and they'll read all 7, and then that's good for the author. And so a new author has to understand that first and foremost. He has to understand that his first 3 books will make him no money whatsoever. He'll spend a lot more than he'll take in, but that's part of learning the business. It's not an easy business. I've never been associated with any other business that's as hard as this one. This is really, really tough. And there's so many things that you have to know and understand and know this and when to do that.
I find that if you can inspire yourself and you can keep going and going and going on writing that next book, and like you say, don't let one person hold you back.
Absolutely.
I think you're going to do good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying great. I'm just saying good.
Yes.
And that's what matters is that inspiration.
In the advance, over 1.5 million books written every year.
Yeah.
So you have to say, well, what are the chances of me getting to be first? So you have to really get to know the business in order to get books up and have them stay up there. For me, it's been a thing of we'll shoot up one day, and I'll just happen to go on Amazon and look, and I see, good gracious, Immersive is ranked at number 50,000 in the whole of Amazon today. Oh my gracious, look at this. And so I'll then go into the section where I can now see that a month ago, on a particular day, Immersive like 200. I've had this happen. It was 200 in the whole Amazon system.
Wow.
And I didn't know. Because nobody tells you. You have to go and look yourself. And if you wanted to use it in your marketing, you have to be lucky because you find it that then you screenshot it.
Yeah.
But if you get a good number one day and you feel inspired and you go back and you look and you see this incredible day, you can't do anything with it.
Yeah, definitely take screenshots, right?
Well, yes, but you got to be there on the right day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's incredible. It's an incredible business.
Absolutely.
And it's really rewarding too.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yes,
well.
yes. Well, one of the good things is authors work together. They don't see themselves as competing against each other, or at
Yeah.
least that's from my experience. And I think that's a real plus because fighting each other gets you nowhere. It's such a big thing you're trying to slay
Yeah.
it. I like travel. I like reading. Therefore, I like reading travel books amongst my travel. It comes natural, right? When I started writing, I found out that there were 28 genres and that
Uh,
travel is number 27. It's the second worst place to write. I
yeah.
never knew that. I would have thought it would have been up near the top. We're actually down at the bottom. And so the things that other authors do where they get together, we don't do in trouble because we just can't do it in the same way. And it makes the job that much harder. And when you come across people who really are willing to work together, you do your best. It all does. I'm offering to do this, to do that. I'll help you this way or that way. Not that I have all the answers, but I want to create something where they will come back to me later and say, Terry, thank you. Stand on your own. You don't be an eye.
So I wanted to make sure, I know that you said in our conversation where we could get a copy of your book, but I just want to make sure that everybody listening here.
Monopoly power is an incredible thing. It can be good and it can be bad. The thing that I like about Amazon is the product is first class. When you're in the groups where people are complaining, nobody complains about, I got a shipment of my books and they were all upside down. I got a shipment of my books and they were out of order. I have never had a problem with any of my shipments. And so there are other people out there. There are other people out there. And I was looking at one of the other people, I won't call their name. I'm trying to decide if I'll do something with them. And so I go into their chat groups and people are complaining about this. The books came, they were upside down. I had to send them back. I had to pay for it. Well, I'm over in Bermuda. I don't want to send any books back to Amazon. They cost a lot to get here. So if I'm going to pay for them going back, and then I can't get them for 3 weeks, and I'm actually doing a promotion of some sort, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So until Amazon shows me something bad, I'm not going to consider leaving Amazon because the product is what I want.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I want to be able to open my box when it comes and find the books I want. And I do. Yeah.
That's interesting. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Terry Lister's books directly on Amazon and his website and also on other platforms. I also left a link to his social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Terry, for accepting the
Well,
invitation
thank you.
featured on P English Literature. And also, this is more than awesome. Very good and exciting. Having a conversation around Africa, your travel to different countries, and a whole lot of other things. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Peter. I really appreciate being with you. I appreciate the work you've done on my behalf in the past, and I'm looking forward to us being able to work together some more. I do pass through England, so I'll be able to see you when I get there.
That'll be great.
It was truly nice meeting you. I enjoyed our
Yes, it's nice meeting you as well. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.